Hi beautiful, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to do a get ready with me and share with you guys how I cover my acne. My face currently is not doing so well. I have a lot of breakouts mainly on my chin, and this is a mixture of like eczema, which is you can find like a map of red right here, also down here. And typically when I try new products I tend to have a lot of breakouts, so I feel like that's what has been happening. Now that it has gotten a lot better, I could definitely share with you how I try to make myself put together even having like a very problematic skin. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. So for the areas where I break out, I tend to use a more hydrating primer. One, because I put a lot of acne mitigation that it tends to get a little bit dry overnight, so I like to put a little bit of hydration back just so I don't have that crusty area around my face. So I like to use the Kat Von D hydrating primer mainly on my chin area and everywhere else where I have quite dry skin. So I like to use the e.l.f. stipple brush. You can purchase yours from iHerb, which they ship internationally, or if you live in New Zealand and Australia, you can just buy e.l.f. cosmetics from Kmart. And for minimizing my pores, I like to use the Smashbox Minimize Pores Primer, and I like to concentrate that around my nose area and my forehead. And I know having a lot of acne or suffering from acne has something to do with like your skincare as well. Sometimes it's diet. It actually depends on people's situation. Personally, for me, it has something to do with trying out products. So I have been using the stipple brush to prime, and it has made a huge difference. It shears out the primer, it spreads it evenly. And before I apply my foundation, I actually like to conceal the red areas with a darker concealer, mainly because it counteracts the color and it makes it look a lot more even toned whenever I put foundation on top. So I am going to use the Fenty Beauty Matchstix, and this one is in the shade Caramel. I like to use my finger for this. This is the cheapest way for you to conceal instead of buying any corrector. You could also use your lipstick, but personally for me a darker concealer works. I don't like to fully cover my face. Like even though I have a lot of scarring, I actually quite like for my skin to look like skin as opposed to it being overly covered. And I like to apply a little bit on my under eye as well, just to counteract the darkness around this area right here. When we apply concealer on top, that gray shadow that you will see when I turn will kind of disappear. For foundation today, I am going to use the Maybelline Matte and Poreless foundation, and this one is in the shade 332 Caramel Door or Golden Caramel. I like to use this one because it's matte and poreless, so it's not overly matte on my skin. Also, it creates a smooth canvas. So I like to pop a little bit on my hands and then use my finger to kind of spread it. Spread the foundation to shear it out. And then I'm going to use a buffing brush. Again, this is by e.l.f. and this is the Ultimate Blending Brush. And I like to stipple. And around the neck area, I like to buff the foundation. I don't like to put a lot of foundation on my forehead, so I like to keep it a little bit minimal, light coverage. So now I'm going to build it up. I'm going to dip my brush into the remaining product that I have on my hand, and I like to stamp that on the areas that needs the coverage. And for the most part, I'm actually quite happy with this coverage. It's not full, it's not super cakey, which I typically like, and I like to avoid putting a lot of foundation around my under eye area because I conceal, so too much product will make me look a little bit more older than what I look like. So I also like the fact that the skin is peeping a little bit, because obviously even if we put a lot of coverage, the texture is still there. So I like to keep it minimal like this. Like I just want to cover the redness of the pimples or the acne as well as on my cheeks, and then create a even canvas. For concealer today, I like to use a more hydrating concealer. So this one is the Too Faced Born This Way multi-use sculpting concealer, and I use the shade Warm Beige. So I like to conceal this part of my eye and this right here, and a little bit on my lids as well. So instead of using a beauty blender, I actually have been loving using a brush. So for this one, I like to use the Sedona Lace 217 brush, which is this one right here. And it just makes everything look airbrush. Since we concealed our eyes with a darker concealer beforehand, like this area right here looks a little bit more brighter. I like to put my powder strategically compared to how I used to apply powder on my face. I used to just apply a lot around my under eye area, and then the leftover just put like a big chunk on the brush and apply all over my face. I don't do that anymore. Instead, what I do is I would make sure that I don't have lines, and then I will use a Real Techniques brush, setting brush, and then I will pick up a loose powder, and then I will actually use the lid to tap off the excess, and then press that around my under eye area. That way we really set the concealer and then we don't crease. So loose powder works for my skin best because I have a very oily skin, and if I use pressed powder, I find that I get oily within 2 hours, whereas if I use a loose powder and really take time to set my face, then my makeup will last a little bit longer. So using the same brush, I will dip into the loose powder and then put the excess on the lid and kind of set the areas that I typically get oily first, so around my T-zone area and my chin, and a little bit on like the breakouts. I don't like to put a lot of powder there because it emphasizes the texture, so I like to set it very lightly. And then in the middle of the brows. So once the middle of the face is set, I like to dip into the loose powder again, about that much, and then I will tap the excess on the lid and start pressing the rest of my face. For bronzer today, I am going to use the Anastasia Beverly Hills powder bronzer, and this one is in the shade Saddle, and I like to use like a natural hair brush, so like a goat hair brush will do because it picks up more product. And then I like to start with my forehead. On this area right here, because I'm a little bit more red, so if you put a lot of bronzer, it will emphasize the discoloration. So I like to put it just above and stamp it and kind of just sweep it slightly because we don't want to lose the coverage. Same goes for this, so I just stamp it a little bit higher. That's how much bronzer I put, especially if I have a lot of like discoloration here, because our cheeks is already quite red from like the scarring and whatnot, so I don't want to put more product to intensify the redness. So for highlighter today, I'm going to use the Wet n Wild highlighting powder, and this one is in the shade Precious Petals, and this is probably one of the best highlighters in the drugstore. And I am going to spritz a little bit of MAC Fix Plus just to get rid of like the powderiness that we have on our face. And typically for workday, this is what my makeup looks like. I'm going to start off by using the shade Twig, which is this one right here, and I'm using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry eyeshadow palette. So I'm going to use Twig, and I am going to just buff that all over the lid, just lightly. To deepen the outer V, I like to go and use the shade called Dystopian. I'm going to actually use the brush that comes with the eyeshadow palette and the flat shader side. Dip that into Dystopian and map out the outer V. So like create a wing liner. And then I'm going to connect that to the crease. Like so. And I'm going to use, I'm going to use the other end of the brush. I'm quite happy with what it looks like. So now I am going to apply this shade right here called Fresh. And I'm going to basically clean up the lid space area. For the lower lash line, I'm just going to use the shade Dystopian. And connect that to the outer V. I want to put a little bit of sparkle. I know it can ruin the eyeshadow look, but I am going to use this Revlon Eye Art, and this one is in the shade Topaz Twinkles. I'm going to use the glittery end, and I am going to pop. Ooh, this is hard because see, I don't want to ruin the cool tone eye makeup that we did. So I think I'm just gonna pop. Oh, okay, I changed my mind. I'm not gonna do it. So I'm just gonna quickly use the shade called Pearl, and we are going to put that in the inner corner. That one doesn't really stick, so I'm going to go back to the highlighter shade that we use, the face highlighter, Precious Petals. And I'm going to intensify that. So before we head out, I am going to just quickly line my lips. So this one is the Essence Lip Liner in the shade Honey Bun. And I've used this so much. It sucks that I could not find this shade anymore. For lips, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to put on this Revolution Lip Topper. And this one is in the shade Fortune. And I'm just going to jump off camera and apply my liner and mascara, and I will show you guys my final look. So here is my final makeup look. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you found this video helpful, especially for those of you who suffer from acne. I feel you. Please make sure to subscribe to my channel for more updates, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye!